Right, morning Jason. Jason Lockland. This is a video made specially for you because you bought one of my off-the-shelf gearboxes, and I just wanted to show you and anybody else who may be interested that just because it's an off-the-shelf gearbox doesn't mean to say it's not been very carefully rebuilt using all brand new parts. And I want to show you exactly what goes into an off-the-shelf gearbox. So you're going to get your 4 synchro rings. As a matter of course, they're changed. You're going to get a new front and rear main bearing, and they're not cheap bearings, they're good quality bearings. You're going to get a new tail shaft bearing. You're going to get a new lay shaft. You get a new caged roller bearing that goes on the end of the input shaft. You get 6 synchro springs and ball bearings. You get 50 new needle roller bearings. All those go into the standard basic rebuild of the gearbox. Now in your case, Jason, you wanted to know what your mechanic should leave on and take off. He needs to remove the reverse switch, which sits here. It's about 16, 17 mil, I can't remember exactly. He needs to unscrew that and remove that. They're only £11 if yours is corroded. They're only £11 new off Fleabay, so you can get a new one of them, no bother at all. But remove the one you've got, keeps the cost down. You also need to remove the speedo drive and the housing and the bracket which sits on the speedo drive. That locates here. Your mechanic will need to remove that because I don't include that in a gearbox rebuild. Your gearbox has got a new tail shaft seal which fits in the back here, behind here, so that's all new as well. You get a new bell housing gasket, and obviously you get the 2 drain plugs, one for the filler, one for the drain. They're identical, doesn't matter which one you use. So that's the components of the basic gearbox rebuild. Now the casings have been cleaned, primed, etch primed and then gloss black, and I don't paint the tail shaft. The reason being that they was never painted when they left the factory, so it looks good when you paint them. I know some transmission specialists, you'll buy the gearbox and it'll be all coated in silver. One, the gearbox was never silver to start with. You can choose to paint your gearbox case whatever colour you like. That's the colour it left the factory. The tail shaft was never painted, and believe me, after a year or 18 months all the paint will peel off, it'll all be bubbled and flaked. It just always looks tatty. If you've got a nice car and you want to make everything look nice, you want it original as possible, and that's original, and it will look like that in another 10 years time. I just clean them, just give them a little bit of a clean up, and a clean up in the sonic solution, and that cleans them up, and that's just exactly how they left the factory. Now in your case, Jason, I just wanted to point out also to your mechanic, if he's not done one before, you'll find 3 little springs when he takes the bell housing off. I don't need the bell housing, and I don't supply a bell housing, so you'll find those, and they locate in the bottom of here. I'll just put them in for you where you can see they are. They're sitting a bit further than that. They're sitting a little bit deeper than that. In fact, they're sitting like that. Now what that does, those 3 springs, they keep the tension on the thrust washer which is sitting on the inside, and it keeps the thrust washer pressed up to the lay gear. And all that does, it prevents a little bit of lateral movement, 1 or 2 millimeters. It's very, very fine, but some people forget about them. Some people don't even know they're there, or they've lost them. But that's where they go. Now you need to keep those 3 springs. Don't worry if they're not present, because I can supply you with 3, and you'll only have to ring me up and let me know, and I'll put those in for you. Now you'll also see a little piece of duct tape here, and you might be wondering what that's for, and I'll tell you. There's a little shaft that runs, and it runs along inside the gearbox along here, and it locates into the back of the housing here. Now that holds the selector forks in place. Now if I didn't have that piece of duct tape there and somebody puts the gear stick in, which again you've got to remove, if somebody starts changing gear without the bell housing, it'll push that shaft out. So that's just to remind you and your mechanic, once the bell housing's on, you can use the gear stick and move the gears in and out. It'll be quite stiff because the engine's not turning. But yeah, that's just to remind you not to mess about with the gear stick until the bell housing's on, because the bell housing will press up to that shaft and it'll hold it in place and it won't pop out. It's not a disaster if it does pop out, because you've only got to take the top off and reinstate it into the corresponding hole at this end. But it's better to leave be until the bell housing's fully assembled, and then you can try your gears then if you want. You don't need to, because when it's in the car it'll get lubricated. This is a dry gearbox, remember. You've got to put oil into it. So that's what you're going to get with a basic rebuild. And I normally make a video assessment of what you've sent in, and then I can show you what components are going to go into your gearbox, should it need a new reverse idler, or should it need a new gear, or whatever else it might need on top of the basic rebuild. So I made this video especially for you for that reason, so you know what's gone in and you know what to expect. So there you go, Jason. Thanks very much for your purchase, and I'm sure it'll give you many happy years of service. Those are the contact details if you need to inquire about one of my gearbox rebuilds. You will get a gearbox assessment if you send an exchange gearbox in. So thanks very much.